topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon, Houston. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show, where for the last 12 years, we have brought you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. We have got such a great show for you today. And I got to, first of all, we've been doing this show for 3 years now. It is one of the easiest shows to do. And it's mainly because our expert is so good at explaining. I have seen, and I don't know what is going on in the last 6 months, sad subject, people passing away, that it just seems like every day there's a celebrity passing away, and some of them are fairly young. And the bottom line is we just don't know when the Lord's going to take us. And that's why a show like we're getting ready to present to you today is so important. It's our estate planning show with our attorney, Julia Dean. Welcome, attorney.
Hi, good afternoon. It's good to see you, and it's great to be back.
Yeah, I was so glad to have you back. Julia's with us twice a month. And, Julia, what you do, I think estate planning is one of the most important and rewarding areas of law.
Well, certainly I feel that way. It is just really a pleasure and an honor to be able to help people through some, to strategically plan to avoid problems and also to help people through difficult times. And so that is my heart, to be able to do that.
You know what I'm really hoping, Julia, is maybe to wake some people up, because I know there's people who say, you know what, I'm young, I'm in my 50s, I'm healthy, nothing's going to happen to me, I've got time. But it doesn't really work that way, does it?
No, it doesn't. And sometimes it really does catch us off guard. For myself as well, my own daughter passed away when she was 33. And so that was,
I remember that.
It just rocked your world. And that was the last thing we were expecting, but COVID took her down. And, you don't know what's going to happen. And it just reaffirmed the importance of what we're doing. And also made me so grateful that she had planned. At her young age, she had planned. And she knew that she wanted cremation. She had her wills in place. She had her all her disability planning in place. And it's so important to me. She had her HIPAA authorization in place that I could talk to the doctors and nurses during that terrible time when you couldn't even go into the hospital. And so, all of that was in place. And there was no arguments. There was no misunderstandings of what she wanted. It was very clear, and we all wanted to honor what she wanted. And so it just became a way of honoring her as opposed to a relational, issue between the families. And so I was so grateful for that.
I mean, can you imagine if her mom didn't take care of all this early in life? Because you never know. And I think today, probably, I really want to start off with just a simple will, which is really sad. So many people don't even have. I mean, we've talked about this before. Yes. I mean, Prince with all of his managers and all of his money people didn't have a simple will.
A real travesty, that those things happen and all the waste that happens as a result of it. But really, it's the relational issues that I am most impacted by and just want to avoid for other people, the negative dynamics. We can make it a positive dynamic by having that pre-plan. It becomes very negative when people haven't planned and they don't have a will in place. Then what happens is there's oftentimes major disagreements, and it's going to people that sometimes we don't even want it to go to if we had planned. And now, there's entitlement issues, maybe with children, even when there's a spouse that's, when there's a blended family. And so we see those issues going on. It's just more expensive. It's more time consuming to go through a probate when we don't have a will than when we do have a will. And we have to get other attorneys involved, what's called attorney ad litem, to come in and help, so they have to find out who the heirs are. They have to do investigations. And so sometimes it's very uncomfortable and sometimes very startling when we find there's other heirs out there that the surviving spouse didn't even know about. So those are really difficult things. Had that will been taken care of, we wouldn't even have that situation where we had this attorney out there looking for, other heirs that could be out there. And, we can't do some planning that we would normally do. So if we don't have a will in place, we can't have internal trust in there. Or if we don't do another trust, there's lots of different kinds of planning we can do, but some of that planning then just becomes where we lose opportunities to do some tax planning or do some asset protection planning or do some divorce protection planning. We're not planning for those people who really need assistance, that are poor with money or have addiction problems, or maybe we have a special needs individual and we don't want to disqualify them from needs-based government assistance. Those are huge things that if they were disqualified because they're a natural heir, because we don't have a will and we haven't done any special needs trust for them, they're immediately disqualified and they have to spend down that money until we can do some other planning. And so, it just becomes a very horrible thing for them because most of their benefits really involve medical care and medical benefits that they would lose immediately because of this. And so planning is so important, and not having a will is really not loving those around you. And when you love those around you, you will take the time and strategically plan for them.
Well, I have seen through the news all the problems. They're still going on with Prince after all these years. They're still, because he didn't have a will, they're still having problems sorting everything out.
And it's true because not only do you have to determine who the heirs are, but the law decides who gets what. Well, people don't always appreciate that. And there's a lot of arguments and they don't get along with people. And then deciding, is something community property or is it separate property? And then proving that up. So there's a lot of nuances there that can just invite litigation and invite problems that we didn't need to have.
Julia, I cannot believe I have never asked you this question before. I think I've told you my girlfriend's daughter is special needs.
Yes.
And an uncle said that he wanted to leave her money, but hadn't done anything yet. I noticed that people tend to get lazy about this. How do you get that relative, not to speed things up or anything, but he's an older gentleman. And, at his age, he could go at any time, because if he doesn't do anything now, she's probably not going to get anything.
Right. And if she doesn't have a special needs trust in place, she needs to get that in place, or he needs to get one in place for her. So, just either doing our own estate planning and, reaching out and saying, I've done this. I know you had a desire to gift to them. If you do gift, if you would place it through this trust so she would remain qualified for her needs-based government assistance, which is so important to us because of the medical care. And it really means so much to us that you're willing to help support her so she has a better life, so she can do more, so she can get more education or, different kinds of medical care or a better living situation. All of those things are so important to us. And we'd really appreciate, if you could make sure it's in this kind of special needs trust, and giving the language, if you've already created that trust, where they can all they have to do is direct that to the trustee of that special needs trust, is, a wonderful thing, because now they don't have to set it up. Now it's there. And once you have a third party special needs trust in place, anyone can gift into it. So it's just kind of maybe giving them the information. I understand, and I really appreciate how much this means so much to us, that you would be willing to help our daughter, our stepdaughter, and just that you would gift in this way would be just a critical way of helping to really benefit her in a way that we can't do if it comes to her directly, because then she'd have to spend it all down. I would go about that one, probably.
I brought this up to you last year. Larry King, who passed away, wrote something up on a napkin. Can you actually write a will up on a napkin?
You can. You can do it all in your own handwriting on a napkin. I was on my way to Russia for a missions trip, and I was with my 2 young children. And what I did is, on a napkin, I wrote some changes, because I thought, what? It's not really a great time for the people I had as guardians to be the guardians. So I did, and I mailed it back. And of course, my parents were like going, what is going on? But, I did. You can write it on a napkin. It's still legal. I have probated even someone's journal, like their diary. And there was only just a few words in the middle of her diary with all her other private thoughts. But it just says, everything to all of my children, don't fight. And that's it. But it was all in her own handwriting. So I submitted that to the court in probate. And, unfortunately, her whole diary had to come in. But because of those words, we were able to get it to the children equally. And we, it was all outright. We didn't get to do any other kinds of planning, but at least we avoided an heirship situation and ad litem cost and fees, and doing that investigation. We knew who her children were, and so that just, little things like that can make a difference. Now, we can't do the kind of planning we want to do with that, obviously, because there's no trust in place, and, there's no protections because there are no trust in place. There's no tax planning, but it may be better than nothing. But what I find sometimes is when people try to take care of things themselves, they don't do it correctly. And so they have this illusion of that it's all taken care of when it really isn't. And so it gets thrown out in court, and now we're back to as if you had no will. And in some ways, I think that's kind of worse, because you thought like you took care of everything, and now your family's in this situation. And so it's very frustrating for people when they find out, oh, my spouse did this, they did self-help, but they didn't do it right. Now it's thrown out, and here I am, and dealing with these situations with all the kids or whatever that I didn't have to before. Had he done it right? So, we want to think about if you're going to use self-help, just be careful, that you do it right, and know that we can't do all the kinds of planning that we would normally want to do. And so, I had a client like that who, the children came in, or the nieces came in later, and the aunt, who was not my client, she just went and did her own self-help, got a They got a will off the internet. She was in the hospital, and so, she signed it at the hospital. Well, the witnesses signed it somewhere else in front of a notary. Well, that's totally invalid here in Texas. You can't do that. And so that was all thrown out. So instead of going to the 2 nieces who've helped her all her life that she was close to, now it went to 11 different people, most of whom who really had no relationship with her at all, including a minor child. And so now we had to get the court even more involved because we needed to get a trust set up for this minor child, because of course no trust was set up now because essentially we had no will. So, just being really careful about that, even though there is some validity to things, we forfeit a lot. And we could forfeit the whole thing if we do it wrong, but we could also forfeit a lot of protections in tax planning, asset protection, divorce protection, and helping those individuals and beneficiaries who really do need some help.
It kind of leads to my next question. I wanted to ask you, what kind of problems arise when people try to take care of their matters themselves?
Yeah, and that's really what I was talking about, is just that, they think that things are taken care of when they really are not.
Right.
And, they don't have these protections that they thought that they haven't even thought about having. Like, if I give something to someone in trust, now there's like this invisible force field around those funds that I give them. So let's say they get $500,000. Well, that $500,000 is protected from any creditors out there. So if they sue them, they can't get to those funds, where if you gave it to them outright, they could take it all. Let's say they were in a car accident, they injured someone and went beyond their auto insurance. They're going to start looking to money like that's out there, in investment accounts or whatever, that have no protections. And so if we had put it in a trust, they wouldn't have lost it. It would have stayed, protected for them. And same with divorces. People go through divorces. We all hope we won't go through them, but over half of us all go through these divorces. And now it can be divided by a divorce court and go to a new spouse, new family, and not ever go down to see your children. And so usually that's not what they want. And we don't want that for our children and our grandchildren. So if it's in trust, then we know that courts can't take it. And then if we have a minor child, we have to have something in place for them if we're planning. But if we don't, then that's when the court has to come in and start making a trust for them. And so again, anytime we get a court involved, it's much more expensive and it's much more time consuming. So things don't happen fast in the courts. And as you can see out there, just looking at the news, it takes time. And, so that is not on the side of the family that really needs the funds too, especially if we have a surviving spouse and they're dependent on those funds and now things are locked up in court. We certainly don't want that happening. So we don't want people thinking that they're taken care of when they're really not, or they're partially taken care of and we still need the court to come in and intervene. And we can avoid court process entirely by planning properly, by planning with trust, like living trust or other trusts that keep us out of court. And I love those options, because if we can keep the court out of it, you have that privacy and you have less expense, and you get to have things transferred the way you want it to transfer quickly. And you have that really, really near immediate access to everything, whether in a disability or upon passing. So utilizing trust is a wonderful gift that we can give to ourselves and give to our loved ones. And so if we're not planning properly, we miss those options.
Especially probate, because you want to stay out of probate, don't you?
Yeah, you really do if you can. If it's uncontested, usually it's not as long or as expensive, but it certainly can have its own twists and turns. But anytime you have a court involved, it's going to be time delayed. It's going to have more expense than we had before. So if we can avoid that, that's wonderful gift that we can give. I think some people try to. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We got a text from Huntsville. Sam in Huntsville wants to know, do you do video when you're first setting up estate planning?
So like video consultations, I'll take it two different ways. So if he's meaning video consultations to talk to him so that, even though we're a little further away, you wouldn't have to make as many trips. Yes, we can certainly do that for our consultations, and even for our reviews of all the estate planning documents. I can do that via Zoom, and we bring up the documents and walk through them, can answer questions. I usually like to have people in the office, if possible, to sign the documents because there's usually a lot, but we can even do that remotely. So we do have a lot of options for that, yes.
Here's one from Friendswood, Ellen. I love your show. I have watched your show for the last 5 months. Is it possible for you to look over documents so I can get a second opinion? You got a fan, Julia.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Ellen. Yes, I can certainly look over and give a second opinion on things, or just know if you want to make some changes. Sometimes it's less expensive just to go ahead and revamp that, so just depending on your situation, certainly can look that over and give advice on it, or we can modify or revamp it as necessary.
Well, that leads us up to our final question. Tell people your phone number and your website for those who are listening on radio, because we're running it for the TV version.
Yes. So my phone number is 281-277-3326. And my website is juliadeanlaw.com. So it's JuliaDeanLaw.com. So I'd love to be able to connect with you. And you can also go to our website. There's a Connect With Us form. Send it in and you'll get a call, or you can call directly. We do have people answering the phone. So if for some reason, we have a few backups on that too, but if for some reason it goes to voicemail, we'll call you back as soon as possible.
Julia, I love your heart. We are so blessed to have you. Please travel safe, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Appreciate that. And you have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Julia. That's Attorney Julia Dean of the Dean Law Firm. Incredible estate planning attorney. Please give her office a call. That's it for us today. We'll be back with you again next week with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.